Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Bros podcast. If it is your first time joining, welcome. My name is Ilan, and I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Jeremy. How are we?
I'm great, mate. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I can't complain. Talk to us about the topic of today.
Oh, well, we've got a topic that is very, again, relevant to what we're experiencing right now. We're in the midst of winter here in Melbourne, and when we hit these months of winter, these colder months, I feel like people tend to optimize their lives a bit more. This optimization culture it's on my algorithm, and I know that we very much get to be the controllers of our algorithm. We very much get to be in the driver's seat of what we choose to consume. But I feel like this is on a lot of people's algorithm. This is what we're seeing a lot of the time on our social media these days. We're seeing these coaches, we're seeing these wellness people, we're seeing these influencers telling us how we need to optimize our lives. And I think this is very much driven by the people like Brian Johnson out of the United States of America and people taking what he says on board. But there are many other people that are influencing this movement about how to optimize yourself, how to optimize your life, how to create a life of insane longevity. And it's stressing me out, man.
Yeah, look, fair enough, it's stressing me out, but optimization isn't just longevity. So like, when I think of the whole optimization thing, I think of that clip of Stephen Bartlett from the Diary of the CEO.
Which he copped so much shit for.
Yeah, and I think the reason he copped a lot of shit for, and for those who haven't watched the video, he pretty much spoke about having like a glass of wine at dinner and it disrupting his sleep score and his Whoop.
And him feeling shit the next day and his workload being off.
Absolutely. So when we talk about optimization culture, we're not talking about self-improvement culture. When we talk about optimization, it's treating yourself like you're some form of robot where every metric of your health needs to be tracked. And if it's a percentile off, if your sleep score is 84% instead of the 85%, you then do everything in your wake, stressing every day to get that sleep score to 85%. And that doesn't just go for things like sleep, it goes for exercise, nutrition, even your relationships. You get to the point where you start almost like algorithmicizing, if that's even a word, your relationships, right? Like you're putting a metric to it, and there are certain things that don't need to have a number beside it. Now, I think numbers are great, and you and I will attest that in order to pursue some form of self-improvement, it's good to have some sort of tracking system, right?
But for how long?
It's not about how long, it's about how your relationship to it. If it's like a North Star to orientate yourself towards, that's great. But you don't want to treat yourself like a Chinese CCTV system that's tracking your every single movement and asking yourself, is the right thing to do? Because most of the time, we intuitively know what's healthy for us. And I think me and you talk a lot about this. And the reason I want to talk about this idea is like, yes, 80% of what you do should be good, but we're a huge believer of having 10 to 20% that is purely focused on just not giving a shit, having leisure in your life and not stressing so much.
Does it stress you out? Like, it definitely stresses me out, this whole optimization culture at times, to a degree, of course, in the sense of sometimes I feel like I'm going really well in my personal life, and then someone tells me that you got to be doing this, this, and that. And I then reflect on that myself and think, fuck, should I be doing the same thing? Do you have that same feeling? And are you someone that has ever been someone that has tracked things consistently, tracking sleep, tracking calories, things like that? Have you ever been a tracker yourself?
Never. And it's a good question. I'm actually not stressed out by the optimization discussion. And the reason is because I've never let myself go down that rabbit hole. I've never tracked a calorie. I've never tracked how many hours of sleep I've gotten. The only thing I track is my heart rate on my Garmin, and it's just because it's a bit of fun here and there.
Hey?
But I don't obsess over it, right? And I think what's worked for me, and to answer your question, why I don't think it's ever bothered me as much, is because I've subscribed more to self-improvement. And I've noticed that I'm most healthy and comfortable when my Monday to Friday is focused on that 80% of, eating as well as I can, sleeping as well as I can, not eating or drinking shit that's not good for me.
Yeah.
And making sure that Monday to Friday is a bit more stringent.
Yeah.
That's what makes me feel good. But what allows me to not get into that burnout stage, and that's, I think, the key pillar, the key reason why I'm not stressed out by it is because I see the benefits on the weekend, and I see the benefits on a Sunday night when I'm like, you know what, I'm glad that I didn't apply my Monday Friday rule to my Saturday and Sunday rule. My Saturday and Sunday rule was very, very different. I had deliberate time to relax where I'm not having to think about every metric in my life. Monday to Friday, I'm not even thinking about the metrics. What I am doing, I'm just doing the things that help me improve. Now, I want to ask you, clearly stresses you out, and I can tell why.
Because I want to live a very long, healthy life. And I feel like there are a lot of people that are shouting and barking these things on social media about what you should be doing to live a very long, healthy life. So I'll give an example of when it comes to saunas. You know, I love going into a sauna. I fucking love saunas. They make me feel $1,000,000. They make me sleep well. They make me feel clear. I just love them. And I feel like a lot of you listeners would love them too. And the ones that do get involved in saunas, they absolutely know the benefits of it. But with that being said, I'm reading things saying that if you're not being in a sauna 2 or 3 times a week, you're not really getting the benefits of it in terms of longevity. And here I am going, well, I only really go into a sauna maybe once a week, and I would love to go more, but sometimes it's just a matter of convenience and the ability to get to the sauna, along with being able to get to the gym and being able to get to my mates and being able to spend time with my girlfriend and spend time with my family. There are all of these factors that keep building and building and building, and it's a struggle to almost optimize, in quotations, everything across the park. It feels like it's actually impossible to optimize every facet of my life. So, for example, with that sauna example, I'm therefore not feeling like I can reap the full rewards of it because I'm being told, well, you know, you got to really be in there 2 to 3 times a week to get the benefits, and here I am only doing it once a week. I think the same can go for people when it comes to going to the gym. Science says that to really get benefits in terms of muscular growth and muscular strength, you need to be hitting a muscle group at least twice a week. You need to be putting that muscle under stress twice a week. But for some people, they might have a really off week and they might only be able to get to the gym on one occasion. And therefore, that might induce a little bit of stress because they might think, fuck, well, I only got to the gym once a week. Was that almost wasted? Am I going to get any benefit at all now because I didn't do it to the optimal, again, that word optimal, I didn't do it to the optimal level. So is that almost wasted time on the time that I did do it? And that's the culture of stress that I feel like this optimization culture is breeding. I feel like it can breed a bit of stress. I'm lucky I don't feel stressed out by it all the time, but there are times where I think, God damn it, like I feel like I should be doing more and I'm not.
Interesting you mentioned that. What I'm hearing for you, what really bugs you, is the all or nothing approach and relationship that people have towards optimization, especially the examples you mentioned there. Because yeah, it would be great if you could sauna 3-4 times a week to derive the benefits. But at the same time, the things that you value outside of optimization is things like your life, your relationships, your hobbies, and so forth. So for you, there's this bit of this annoyance that creeps in, which is like, I know I'm extracting the benefits by going less than that, but I'm sick of hearing that if I'm not doing it to the desired metric, like proselytized online, then I'm somehow not deriving the benefits. Because you and I have seen, and this is the reason I don't give a shit about it, is because I've seen in my own life that just by having a North Star to orientate myself towards, as I said, having my Monday to Fridays as that kind of vehicle where I can just pursue self-improvement, I've seen the benefits there. So you got to look at the people who are attracted to optimization culture as well. And the reason it can prey on people is the people who have nothing going on in their lives.
I feel like that is the only way to really fall into the whole optimization culture to a really stringent degree, is to not be doing much in your everyday life.
And so talk to me.
Because there's so much you got to fucking do to optimize, right?
The way I see it, and I want to get your opinion on this, I find that people who pursue things like 75 hard, and I think that's great. If you need a stimulus to get you out, that's great. But you and I are big believers of sustainable lifestyle approaches, not quick fads that, are temporary and then you revert back to the behaviors that you dejected and hated for so long. So I wanted to ask you, why do people that don't have much going on in their life, why are they so attracted towards optimization?
Well, because I think a lot of it is also time filling as well. If you don't have much going on, when I say much going on, like maybe you're not working insane hours, and you can therefore allow yourself to do a lot in the day. You can do your meditation, your sauna, your yoga, your breath work, your diet to a immaculate degree, your runs. You can do it all because all these things take time, right? And if you're not working a 9-to-5 job like a lot of people are, then you've got more time to do it. But I do want to touch on, you mentioned there's 75 hard. I really want to talk about 75 hard.
75 erect, you mean?
Hilarious. Shocking dad joke. Anyways, we'll pass that. We'll let that through to the keeper. But I want to talk about 75 hard because a couple of my really good mates have gone and conquered 75 hard. And look, 75 hard, if those aren't familiar, it's the 75 days where you got to really lock into an optimization culture to another degree. It involves 2 workouts a day, drinking a certain amount of water, reading a book, I think eating very cleanly, no alcohol, no drugs, no illicit substances. And I think sleep has to be 8 hours as well. So there's all of these little factors, or big factors rather, that you need to tick off for 75 days in a row. So it's really trying to instill that full-blown optimization culture. Now, some people can be a little bit lax as to how they do that. At least I've heard from what my friends have said when they've gone and done it themselves. But I really respected this. A couple of my friends who have done it recently, they've both come out saying the same thing. They've both come out saying, yes, I lost a fair bit of weight and I like how my body looks now compared to how it looked at the start, just by virtue of doing a couple of extra workouts, sleeping better, eating better. They get those benefits in terms of fat loss and how their body looks. So they felt like that was a big tick for them. That was great. But they also both said that they wouldn't recommend other people doing it and they wouldn't recommend doing it again. Why? Because it's too much of an extreme. And when you do something that is too extreme, you almost lose that love for life. You lose that balance in your life. You lose that ability to be a little bit free in your life and have a little bit of wiggle room and to just be a fucking human, because you're so robotic with your everyday movements and you're so locked into this optimization that you lose that human aspect to you. That aspect where, you know, maybe your friend wants to get a Palmer with you at a pub on a Thursday night and all of your mates are going, but you've locked into this culture and you therefore have to decline that, and therefore that makes you a little bit sad and whatever. So it's all of these things that do add up that my friends have said that really affected them towards the end, and they were glad that it was over. They were glad that it was actually over. Now, we can also talk about what happens after 75 hard, because there are a lot of people that after 75 hard, unfortunately, do fall back into their old habits. And what does that suggest?
That it's not sustainable.
Exactly right. It suggests that doing something to such an optimal degree, again, that's the word of the podcast, optimization and optimal, doing something to a heavy optimal degree isn't sustainable. And therefore, is it actually worth us doing this at all?
Yes. And here's where I'm gonna add a little caveat. Forgetting things like 75 erect and 75 flaccid, I'm not as concerned about that. As you were talking there, I was just kind of reflecting. There are times in your life where for small periods of time, you do want to have some form of optimization depending on what you're working towards. So an Olympian that's working towards, you know, breaking a world record in 100-meter sprints will make sure that their training, their diet is as optimal as possible.
Sure.
Because they've got the Olympic Games coming up. It's the last dance. That UFC fighter or that boxer who's preparing for that fight, who needs to lose a fuck ton of weight or needs to put on a bit of weight and needs to train in order to try and perform at their most optimal level, I think it's appropriate there.
Sure.
I think where you and I both agree, though, is that once that, it's like, actually, this is a really good example as well. When we talk about bulking and cutting, especially you've always been a big proponent of having like a time for your for your cut to finish, because then it gives you something to work towards. Kind of similar in this, but you should optimize for certain periods and then relax completely. I think the optimization culture thing that we have an issue with is that it's 24/7.
And extremities of
it, right? So
at least in the everyday lifestyle. I don't want to talk about athletic lifestyle
correct.
because I feel like that's an exception.
Sure, but the point I'm trying to make is there's times in our own life where we have to pursue optimization. You just don't want it to be a marker of your self-worth. And that's why I think people are attracted to optimization culture. It's because if I can apply a number and metric, let's say my entire personal life isn't chaos. Let's say I just got broken up with and I'm incredibly heartbroken and I'm also not happy at my job. I'm not earning money. My life is just a shambles. My other friendships are going to shit, but I just pursue optimization of my health. What does that do?
Are you actually listening to your humanity there? Are you actually feeling the breakup that you're going through?
No, I'm not. And maybe I am, but chances are what I'm doing is I'm outsourcing all of my emotional energy towards something that is going to try and fill this vaporous hole, this hole that essentially needs to be processed, a hole that needs to be understood with curiosity. And what I mean by that is, yes, you should, I'm going to say this again and again, yes, you should pursue self-improvement. But what I will say is people who tend to pursue this optimization culture, it has some sort of compensation mechanism that if I get and track all my numbers that are going well, it can somehow dilute the pain that I was experiencing before in the chaos of my own personal life. So people are attracted to something when they've got nothing else. It's like you can look at the best high performers, the people who live optimization consistently. If you ask them, most of the time they'll say there's a lot of stuff in their own personal life that is chaotic and it's disordered. And that's a huge reason why they pursue this optimization. Now, the real mature ones, they use that for rocket fuel to start improving their life. But after a while, they realize, wait, the reason I keep going into the gym and trying to sculpt my body isn't to get back at my ex. That was my initial activation fuel. That was my initial rocket fuel. But really what keeps me going is the fact that it gives me structure, routine. It's a form of meditation for me. And ultimately, the reason I go to gym now is different to the reason I went to gym at the start. And gym could be a lot of things, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of gym, Tom Howard came on our show and, Tom was a great guest, spoke about his routines day to day, being a VFL athlete and running his own gym.
Shout out Extract Fitness.
Shout out to Extract Fitness from a very young age. And we were talking a lot about optimization, but we were also talking about microplastics, health, diet, peptides, this and that. And Tom said some very interesting things because he was talking a lot about how his diet is pretty immaculate to a T. You know, he really does put a lot of effort and focus into what he eats. But then he said, with regards to the whole microplastic stuff, I absolutely appreciate how they aren't great for you and you shouldn't be warming up your food in plastic Tupperware containers, and that is releasing microplastics, and then it's not optimal for you. It's just not great. And he said, you know what, as like a person that does try to optimize and be the healthiest version of myself, that might seem a little bit counterintuitive. Like, why am I a gym goer, a VFL athlete, someone that really cares about my body? Why am I inviting that culture? Why am I inviting the microplastics essentially, and I'm not refusing that? Because you would think someone like that would refuse that, and they would be very understanding of the microplastics, and they would absolutely revert to then, or rather transition to doing to warming up their food in a glass container. But he said, you know what, like there are bigger stresses in my life, and if it is convenient for me to warm up my food in a plastic Tupperware container because that is what's easy for me, it's accessible for me, and it saves me stress, then I'm going to continue doing it regardless of the microplastics that people say will harm me and harm me bad for the test of time. Because the fact of the matter is, stress is more of a killer than these potential microplastics. And I truly agree with that. And talking to him about that, I had a moment where I was like, fuck, you know what? Like, I need to take some of that on board, because here I am trying to like optimize myself and remove certain microplastics, remove certain things from my life. But sometimes that can actually induce a little bit of stress and a little bit of extra effort. Like, for example, cooking eggs on a like a pot at home, on a pan,
stainless steel pan.
On a pan at home. I mean, I've been using a stainless steel pan now, and it's fucking great, and the eggs are terrific on there, and I highly recommend it for everyone that is an absolute egg lover like myself. However, it does take longer to cook up my eggs on there. I do need to wait 5 minutes for the pan to boil up and reach a certain heat before then cracking the eggs on there. Whereas with the non-stick pan, I could warm it up and bang straight away, crack some eggs on there, and it'll be done in 5 minutes. So it is about picking your battles. It's not about being perfect, and it's not about optimizing every single day all the time, because there are times where you just want convenience in your life, and convenience can sometimes be a greater thing, and often will be a greater thing if it means that you aren't stressed doing it. If something causes you stress in the process of doing it, fuck me, you're probably going to live a shorter life by having countless years of stress.
Well, this really reminds me of the blue zones. I don't know if you've heard of them. So
No.
These are the zones with communities of people that tend to live longer than the average lifespan and projection of lives lived across the world. And I know that they are in the Mediterranean. There's also different parts, different island communities. But
Sure.
Let's focus on the Mediterranean. Think of an old Greek man in his 80s or 90s who's been a pack-a-day smoker, drinks red wine every night, but he walks and he moves. He's by the sea, so he's got that sea air. The fruit and veg he eats is off his own veggie patch.
Yep.
That person will live longer than the optimizer.
He's eating lots of
And
olive
it's a
oil
generalization,
and
and it's a generalization, but I reckon what's keeping that person alive is probably partly genetics, because obviously a lot of that stuff is, our fate is predetermined in terms of how long we live. But I think it's the level of stress, It's the level of stress. They're not stressing about how many... You think those people have a scale for the foods and the macros?
They're not wearing a Whoop.
Do you think they're on they have an account on MyFitnessPal?
No, they're not wearing a Whoop either.
Was it... I look at, the people who, for example, and I know Mallorca's not in Greece, it's Spain, but, sometimes just living out in Mallorca and fishing and living out your days like that sounds nice.
It sounds nice, mate, but you know what? It doesn't even have to be by the sea. I mean, I know you talk about the blue zones there.
It's the stress component, though.
It's the stress component, because I think you mentioned the blue zones there, and absolutely I agree. I think being out in the sun in nature is the biggest thing to kind of keep you going for a long period of time.
And we're not advocating that people smoke cigarettes and drink red wine every day. It's just
of course not, but it's just the nature of these people, right? And I'm going to even use my grandfather as an example here, who lived to the ripe old age of 96, and a very good, healthy 96 years, and that was through war times and everything. And to a lot of our listeners, you probably have grandparents of the same longevity as well. And with my grandfather, God, I mean, I've heard stories from my family that, back in the 1940s, he had a time period where he was chain smoking a little bit, for that period of time, because that's what they did back then. But there we go. There is a period of chain smoking. And again, we're not condoning here that you should go be a chain smoker for 10 years, but they were smoking cigarettes. They weren't worried about microplastics. They had cup of teas 4 times a day with tea bags for their whole lives. It wasn't those microplastics that killed them. It wasn't the short period of smoking cigarettes that killed them. A lot of these people, they lived till the ripe old age of 96. So what was it at the end of the day? It wasn't these microplastics. It wasn't these other external factors. And it just shows that if you have a happy lifestyle that is surrounded by people that you love, you stay social, you stay in nature, and you do the things that you want to do, you will probably live a long, healthy life, of course, within the context of predetermined fate, like we spoke about. And I, as a physio and you as a psych mate, I'm sure you've got some incredible patients that you speak to about life, and I do myself. And there was this one man that I was talking to who was, I think he's about 93 years old. And he was telling me as well, I asked him one day, I said, what do you think is the secret to your longevity? And it's something that I do love asking my patients and just older people that I come across. And they always come back down to the same things. They always, number one, say that they don't want to live a life that is stressful, and they've never lived a life that is stressful. They say you need to relax, you need to laugh, you need to have humor in your life, and you can't take life too seriously. And besides from having a lot of humor and living a life that is stress-free, there are a few other key points that this lovely wise man said to me, along with what other people have said to me, and that's one, having good relationships, being social, maintaining being social throughout your life. We talk about male loneliness. We talk about loneliness across, whether you are male or female, but specifically male. We speak about how bad loneliness can be and why it is such a killer. It is a killer. There is no arguments about it. It is a killer. We are humans. We are designed to be social creatures, and we must stay social throughout our lifespan. So that's number 2. Number 3 as well was actually being in nature, making an effort to be in nature, be in the sun, be around water, go for walks, go for hikes. Being around Mother Nature keeps you going, releases serotonin, boosts you up, vitamin D, all the good stuff, which we won't go into, but we know why being in nature is so good. And the other thing is just exercising and keeping moving as well. If we are moving, if we're keeping our bodies active, we will stay on our feet and we will stay alive. You would think for a long period of time, because I unfortunately see it as well in things like nursing homes. As soon as people put themselves into wheelchairs, and I know this is a long conversation down the line, but the people that get into wheelchairs, they tend to derail and decline pretty quickly versus those that do keep up on their feet as well. So we need to move. And that's why I think there's also science coming out to say that those in office jobs and those in desk jobs are struggling, and why sitting sedentary for 9 hours a day in your desk job is equivalent to having a pack of darts a day. We've heard that evidence come out. It's the equivalent of having a pack of darts a day by being sedentary, because we are designed to keep moving.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, going back to the optimization thing, for a lot of men, and this is again a little bit different to your point, but just kind of go with me for a sec. A lot of men will pursue locking in 24/7 will not make you a more likable person.
No,
locking in 24/7 will also not clear or resolve any of your issues that you have with mum or dad or your friends. It also won't cure your heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
Escapism takes many forms, and optimization culture is just another form.
Mm-hmm.
It's a less damaging form of drinking. It's a less damaging form of drugs, but it's a form of escapism. It's just another way of you not having to face the shit. Like I take a different approach to you, I suppose, sometimes, because I always look at it from like the psych perspective.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm always looking at it, it's like, what's the function of someone wanting to pursue lock-in culture consistently?
To a heavy degree.
Yeah, to a heavy degree. And like, it's because there's something they're running away from, I think. Not all the time. Someone might listen to this and be like, well, hold on, what about self-improvement? And yeah, self-improvement is very different. Self-improvement, you're not treating your entire self-worth like a performance review, right? Like that's the crux of it, right? If you want to have times where you do lock in, yeah, that's necessary. But your entire attitude towards life, that's what we're talking about. Your whole personality.
That's right.
It cannot be geared, or rather it should not be geared towards consistently looking at means of getting that next little step, because I don't think you gain much. Like, you don't become a better person by doing it. You become a better person by, gearing your life towards self-improvement and being disciplined. But you also become a better person by having balance. You become a better person by allowing yourself to relax. I've struggled with this so much where, like, I've always felt like I have to justify relaxing as a means of saying it's going to guide and aid my productivity. That's like been a personal thing for me, where it's like, no, that discomfort you face when you're sitting down doing nothing, learn about it. Why is it making me uncomfortable? What's showing up for me? What's the internal dialogue? And I'll tell you right now, the internal dialogue that comes up is you could be doing more. Other people are doing more than you. You're not going to achieve the things that you want to achieve by just sitting here and doing nothing. And that's the exact moment where it's actually important to sit with that discomfort. Because I know on a logical level, rest is actually genuinely important. And I could probably be getting more work done, but is that more valuable than actually having time where you can just sit down and do nothing? Yeah,
I like that. The power of doing nothing. And it reminds me of, I actually watched a video the other day on TikTok. It was of Novak Djokovic. Novak Djokovic was talking on Jay Shetty's podcast On Purpose. And Novak was talking about the beauty of being bored and why it's important to actually be bored. He said that his son, they were on, I think the context was they were on some family holiday for a weekend. They had a very active morning. They were playing tennis. They were by the lake. They were rowing. They were this and that. They were being very active in the day. And then it came the afternoon, and Novak's son came up to him and said, Dad, I'm bored. Dad, I'm bored. I want to do something. And Novak was saying, it's good to be bored. Be bored, son. Go outside, have a seat on the stool, look at the trees and look at the water and just be with your thoughts and think for a little bit. Actually just go outside, do nothing and just think, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes. And then, we can reassess and come back and do something else. But it's good to be bored. It's good to sit with your thoughts. It's important to reflect because that's the beauty of life. It's not about chasing the next thing always. It's about maybe doing something that's exciting and then sitting with it and thinking about that and having a moment of reflection before then going and chasing the next big thing as well. We need to be able to appreciate and have that sense of gratitude first before then going and chasing something greater. And I think that's the powerful message of what Novak was saying, is that it's not necessarily about boredom, but it's about reflection. It's about rest and it's about introspection. And we know how much we love talking about introspection on this potty, don't we?
We love it. Hey, to close off this episode and the message, I think, with what we're trying to say is, yes, self-improvement's important, but dedicating your whole life to optimization isn't very helpful. Yes, there are times where optimizing things can be helpful, but your general demeanor and attitude towards life should include moments where you can, as you would say, just be human. Relax, enjoy your relationships, not think so much about whether you should have that parma or not, or have that beer with dinner. Sometimes using your own common sense is enough.
Just chill, man. Just chill. Just take it easy. Just chill. Live that hippie lifestyle at times. Just chill, just relax, and you'll live a happy, healthy life.
Amen.